This week on Paul's Security Weekly, Paul won't be joining us, so we decided to give you, our listeners, the chance to ask our remaining PSW hosts anything you want. In the security you use, using HDMI radio interference for high-speed data transfer, top 10 open source software security risks, dumb password rules, Grand Theft Auto even, the false promise of ChatGPT, the hidden button, how a single engineer brought down Twitter, Microsoft's aim to reduce tedious business tasks with new AI tools. The internet is about to get a lot safer. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly.
And welcome to the show. As you might have heard in the intro, there's a few programming changes here tonight. The role of Paul Asadori will be played by his understudy, Larry Pesce. And Larry Pesce will be played by none other than Mr. Jeff Mann. So here is Mr. Larry Pesce.
And welcome to Paul's Security Weekly. This is episode number 775, being recorded on March 8th, 2013, right from G-Unit Studios right here in Rhode Island. And in an amazing twist of fate, to my left, Mr. Jeffrey Mann.
Yes, I feel like you tonight for some reason.
Man, I'm so sorry.
We slid right.
Yes, we did. Did we shift left or shift right?
We shifted right. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But I'm here.
Awesome.
Glad to be here.
Coming into us remotely, Miss Mandy Logan.
Good evening. I was going to show you, look, I'm half prepared for the heavy-hitting questions from the listeners tonight.
Oh, only half prepared?
I'm only half prepared.
It's better than not prepared at all.
More than we are.
I only have one of my gloves.
Excellent. Also coming to us remotely, Mr. Sam Bowen.
Good evening. Glad to be here.
Awesome. And one of my favorites with epic backgrounds, Mr. Tyler Robinson.
What's up, buddy? Good to see your face. Jeff, like you in the left-sided chair, this works pretty well. I like it.
You like it?
Oh,
I like it too.
All right, so let's see. We should have a little... Whoa, that's not good. In any case, I think I can do this even without the teleprompter because I just screwed it up. Join us at an upcoming official cybersecurity summit near you. The series of one-day invitation-only executive-level conferences are designed to educate senior cybersecurity professionals on the latest threat landscape. We are pleased to offer our listeners $100 off admission when you use code SECWEEK23 to register. Visit securityweekly.com/cybersecurity summit to learn more and register today. Awesome. Mm-hmm. See, I even could do that with screwing the teleprompter up. Like, it just goes to prove that Paul's job is pretty easy. I mean, hard. Oh. So with that, jumping right into our first segment, we decided to do something completely different because Paul's not here and we can. We decided to do an AMA for all of our hosts and ask some questions. Unfortunately, no Paul, but that's okay. We can answer on his behalf on a couple of these, I think.
We originally thought we should label it "Ask Anything You Want About Paul."
I mean, we could do that.
And which we can do, but he is our friend. We'll be nice to him.
So we do have a couple of questions that we gathered earlier in the week, but definitely if you are in Discord currently during the live broadcast of this show, don't hesitate to drop some questions in. And most of our questions are currently for all of our hosts that are here. So let's see. One of the first questions that I thought was good. And we'll go around. I'll pick somebody at random to answer. We'll hit all of them. If each one of the hosts had to be a distribution of Linux, which one would you be? And I'm going to start with Tyler.
I think we should answer this for other people, honestly.
Oh.
This is much more fun.
Oh, well,
yeah.
So let's Tyler, answer which one you think you'd be, and then pick one other host and what you think they'd be.
I like that. Let's see. I would probably be Parrot Security. I guess that's a flavor of Debian, but kind of true to my colors, but also a little bit of hacking and dark-sided stuff that's not the typical Kali run-of-the-mill, so it's a little off and different. So that's probably me. I would probably say, let's see, Mr. Jeff. I'm going to go with he's Gen 2 because he's like the original OG. He has to do everything the hard way, but he's very stable and functional. And when you get it right, he's as solid as they come.
Excellent. Sam.
Yeah, well, I thought about this. I use just plain Debian for everything these days because I got no patience for any fancy stuff. So, and it seems to me like Tyler would be Slackware.
Oh.
To do everything the hard way, be old school, but not quite as insane as Arch. That would be Paul.
I like it.
Mr. Jeff.
Well, I was going to say Slackware because that's what I started on. It's probably what I finished on too, come to think of it. That might be a true answer. No, I think we moved on to Red Hat at some point. And then I have to randomly pick somebody else. I don't know. I don't even know all the distributions of Linux. I'll say Mandy, and I'll just make something up. Kali.
All right.
For no particular reason other than that's the only thing I know that hasn't been said already.
I don't know, man. Mandy's like Ubuntu because you can like dress her up and change it and whatever flavor we're feeling that night. We'll do KDE one night and then we want to swap out for some rainbows and butterflies.
I was going to say Kubuntu. I was going to say for me Kubuntu.
Well, Mandy, you're up next, so
go for it.
All right, I just said it. So I'm thinking I would either be Mint, but like Kubuntu, kind of going along with Tyler's vibe on that. And then let's see, I'm going to choose Sam, and I think he would be Fedora, just because he has that little extra panache that he doesn't show off all the time.
Nice. All right, I guess I'm
Getting
Somebody tell Larry what he is.
Well, I mean, I get to tell what I am.
Oh yeah, tell what you are.
So I'm going to take a little bit of a spin on this and which Linux distribution I'd be. I'm going to go with Chrome OS just because I want to get shit done. Like
bullshit.
What's that?
You can't run any VMs. It's very plain.
I mean, there's that. Okay, so all right, so Chrome OS.
Functionality in day-to-day life is top notch. I mean, that is useful. That is fantastic. I think Chrome OS is great.
But maybe that's a little bit of a cop out because is it really Linux? I mean, we say Linux for the desktop. This is the year of Linux on the desktop, and Chrome OS is the one. But if I really had to pick a Linux distribution, I'd have to say Ubuntu.
I don't know. You're more Pen2 or Backtrack. Like you have all the old school tools that still work and are brilliant, but you're the mainstream kind of core foundation of what is Kali, but you haven't adopted all the new school because you just don't need all the flair and fancy.
So what you're saying is I'm old.
You're old in the OG style, so yeah, that's okay.
So my one other host, if I had to pick, I'm picking Tyler because I'm going with BSD for Tyler because Mr. Overly Paranoid, everything needs to be locked down and you don't install anything unless you need it. That's Tyler. That's Tyler.
Man,
Yes.
I try to use BSD just once, and everybody hated it. That is hard to use. They're not kidding when they made the logo a devil.
You're not joking. I mean, to be fair though, my first Linux was Gen 2, and they made us this was back in 2000. They made us compile the audio and video drivers from scratch. I hated Linux by the end of that class. So I don't know. Maybe that's still some PTSD of why I still use Windows for op stations.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Will any of you be at RSA this year? And where can we come see you? I know I will not be at RSA, so sorry. Anybody else here going to be at RSA? Jeff?
I will be at RSA.
Jeff, you will?
Yes.
And
where can they find me? Either on the floor, which I'll do once, or at networking events throughout the city, or at the cigar bars. And there's only 2 of them in the city.
So chances are high.
Chances are high. But I usually, the meeting place at RSA, if you've ever gone to, is the W. So it's kind of like the corner hotel right across from the Moscone, and the lobby there is kind of like, that's where you go to see where the party is. That's where you go to see who's hanging out and stuff. So I try to cruise by, through the lobby a couple times a day. But text me, message me, reach out to me. I'll be happy to meet somewhere if anybody's going to be out there.
Nice. Sam, Tyler, Mandy, any of you going?
I might be there. Last year I was in the Dark Arts Village, which is a new one. Oh. And I'm not sure if it's going to happen again, but if it does, I might be there.
Yeah, to be determined.
To be determined. Excellent. I know Finite State, the company I work for, will be there, but I'm not exactly sure what who, what, or where they're going to be. Just because I haven't been involved in that stuff, I knew I wasn't going, and that type of stuff. So.
And Security Weekly Productions will be there as well.
Yes. Sam?
Yes, Sam.
I just want to say, it would be besides SF, which is, in my opinion, a lot better con to go to than RSF.
Oh, it is.
Fair enough. Mandy, you look like you were saying something in there too.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely hoping to be there. It's not confirmed or anything yet. And as far as where I would be, probably maybe around the W, like he's saying, but then around Security Weekly Productions or on Broadcast Row or on the floor. Again, same thing.
Yep.
If I am there, message me, contact, say hello.
Yep, and I'm going to peek at Slack in here because I bet Sam will be sending me some messages. My understanding is that there'll be some presence from Security Weekly on Broadcast Row, to the best of my knowledge, for both Sam and Renee in Broadcast Alley. So, you'll find them there.
We also have a question that came in on the Discord, Larry.
Ooh, go for it, Jeff.
I will read it, and it's actually a pretty interesting question. And this question came up at a recent event that Gray Fox was at. Hello, Gray Fox. Does the type of drink you prefer, that is beer, wine, scotch, juice, etc., indicate the type of InfoSec professional you are? For instance, if I choose a good single malt, does that make me a PowerShell using blue teamer? Or if I choose an oatmeal stout, does that make me a Python exploit dev? Does gin and tonic make me a social engineer who looks for every opportunity to plant a rubber ducky? That is the question.
So, Tyler, if you had a Modelo, what would that make you, right?
I don't know. A dirty Mexican that sneaks behind you. And I can only say that I love Mexicans and my family is. So, for all you haters out there, slow down.
Yes, slow down.
I would probably say maybe a tequila club soda. You can just drink them all night, feel hydrated, and kind of sneaks up on your ass, and you end up doing
Does that make you a particular type of InfoSec professional? That particular drink?
It kind of just sneaks up on you and does crazy shit. I don't know.
I mean, that's accurate for Tyler.
That is. But
yeah.
He could drink a ginger ale and we get the same result.
I mean, with Tyler, yeah.
With Tyler.
But Tyler, yeah. Sam, you look like you're ready to...
I've got a logical connection. I became very, very annoying and got flamed many times because I complained many times about people drinking on the job in hacking. So that made me the self-righteous, arrogant kind of hacker.
It just has water and Earl Grey tea, apparently.
Well, I mean, the examples included juice, so that might include Red Bull or Mountain Dew or as well.
But I remember I offended a guy giving a cryptography talk because he was getting everything wrong and he was running shots of whiskey while talking. And so I put this on Twitter. If he wasn't drinking while giving the talk, he might not be making these mistakes. And then he called me out right from the stage. Who's this Sam Bound guy? We're in a bar. What are you complaining about my drinking for? Anyway. Then they had the very first B-sides. They were having it in San Francisco, and Jack Daniel said, we need a place to have it. And I said, you could have it at my college and it would be free. And he said, that would be great. But then they found out you couldn't have booze. And at that time there was unanimous, that's impossible. impossible. That's insane. We can't possibly do that. And then a few years later, one of the companies around here, Open DNS, started not having any booze at their events, and it just sort of became more common to not have booze at your events. So
Yep.
it has become more acceptable.
Yep, and that's kind of crazy. It shouldn't need to become not acceptable. And I think we've made the jokes for years about we're a drinking industry with a security problem as opposed to the other way around. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy spending some time with my friends and drinking socially, and sometimes that involves drinking too much. But because we like to socialize, and we have more drinks, and it's a good spiral, or it's a bad spiral. So.
But to answer, my opinion on the question is, I don't think the type of drink makes a difference or is a necessary indicator of the type of professional you are. You drink and you're in the industry, that's a strong indicator, or you're in this industry and that leads you to drink, also a strong indicator. The fact that we make a game out of every time I say PCI, that's a good indicator too.
Yep.
It may indicate what kind of results you get.
And that's kind of funny because early on in my pen testing career, I was actually working with Paul on a pen test, and it was Paul and I on a pen test, and we were both hacking from home. We were on like Skype talking about what we were doing, and it was an overnight test. And I think I was probably 6 or 8 beers in by about 3 o'clock in the morning when we finally got in. Mm-hmm. And those mistakes were made early on in the careers about those types of things. And we're much smarter about it now. We don't start drinking until 3 a.m. right now. There's other jokes there. But Jeff, I'm with you. I don't think any specific drink makes you any particular good type of hacker, because I enjoy a whole bunch of different stuff. Mm-hmm. I enjoy a good gin and tonic. I'm definitely a bourbon rye whiskey, Japanese whiskey, but right. I'm not so much on Scotch. Beer, yep. For how many years did we do this show when we tried to have a different beer that we had not had before on every show? And we did that for years.
And you didn't run out of beers, probably.
We didn't. We didn't for a long time. I was in, where was it? Virginia? No, it wasn't Virginia Beach. I was somewhere in Virginia, Reston, teaching a class. And right down the street from the hotel, within stumbling distance, was a bar that had like 400 different types of beer on the menu. And I walked in and I sat down to try to have a beer that I hadn't had before, and there were only 3 on the menu I hadn't had.
Wow.
Which was kind of terrifying.
I think all alcohol is good, other than Fernet. Fernet is
good God. That's not alcohol.
Fernet,
that's a crime. It's a crime.
It is. Yeah. It really is.
And there's that, what is it that Johnny Christmas always brings to all the conferences?
Fernet.
No, it's got some other name.
Gosh.
Are you thinking of Silly C with the Malort?
Oh,
Malort,
yeah, Malort. Yep. Fernet and Malort. Those are
the Chicago crowd and Malort.
Yeah, you're thinking of Malort.
Malort.
Yep.
I'm sorry about this listener's question, and I think it's a very good exercise to go through that. I don't think it can absolutely apply, but I will throw another one in there. I feel like since I come more from biohacking, I feel like then the drink would have to have, I'm thinking like a White Russian because it has milk in it. And that seems like more biologically connected than just random alcohol.
But the question is, does the carpet really tie the room together? It's a Big Lebowski reference. It's one of my wife and my favorite movies. It's been a long time though.
What's your favorite hacker movie, I think, is an indicator, if not the type of professional you are, probably more when you became aware of the space, of the industry.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit more of an indicator. But, I
don't know, because I kind of feel like one of my favorite, which I classify as a hacker movie, is War Games.
And totally.
Absolutely.
Young. It's not
and you're not old enough for that to be your favorite, given what we were just saying, but it's perfectly okay for it to be your favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think, when I watched it, because we didn't really have TV or cable, and so the only way I got it was we had an old VHS, and there was a tape of that. Mm-hmm. And that would be, I think it might indicate some like what your mentality, what you enjoy in the hacking world too.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah, Mandy, I'm right there with you. When I grew up, we were in the middle of several hundred acres of undeveloped forest, and quarter-long mile driveway, and it was cost prohibitive for us to get cable. I want to say in the early 80s when cable was a thing, it was going to cost us $2,000 to have cable television installed at the house. So my mom gave us a choice. As a family, it was just my mom and I. Do we want cable, or do we want to get a VCR and get the monthly thing to the local video store? And we both chose the VCR. So my golden age of movies started about 1982. And we watched every movie in the video store that was age appropriate from me, maybe even a little more so, from about 1982 onward. And I worked in a video store in college. So that was my jam.
So you saw a lot of bad movies.
I saw a lot of good movies too. And even bad movies that bad movies that I consider good, like Waterworld. I like 95% of Waterworld. I think it was 95% of it was a good movie. There's like 5% of it that's absolutely horrible. And I'm like one of the few people on the planet that actually enjoyed Waterworld with Kevin Costner.
I did too.
So,
liking Waterworld, what does that say about it?
It says a lot, I think.
Like that is the only question needed for a psychological profile, right?
Oh yeah. Did you like Waterworld?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Waterworld?
Yep.
Westworld, on the other hand, great movie.
I haven't seen that one.
The original.
I haven't seen that one.
Yul Brynner.
I have not seen it. I'm going to add it to my Netflix list, though. So
Well, you'll be disappointed. Or
perfect. Or not.
I'll have to look up the name of the other one, the classic 70s TV movie where they put the glasses on and they see that half the people have been turned into aliens.
Oh.
I can never remember.
Scanners.
The names. No, it's not Scanners.
Not Scanners.
Ask a question, I'll look it up.
Fair enough. All right. Let's see. Let's do one a little bit maybe more serious. Why is security so hard? Who wants to?
So you're going to jump to that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to go right away, Jeff. Who wants to go first? Sam? You want to comment on that one?
Well, I think it's no different than crime and law and order in all the other fields. You've got opponents that are intelligent and working hard and opposing you. So I think it's just basically another form of law enforcement.
Interesting take. All right. I see Tyler making angry faces over there. Tyler, why is security so hard?
I don't know. I think my point of view changes hourly on this one. I would say security is probably difficult because it is very similar to healthcare, right? You have a lot of competing interests for capitalism, where there's a lot of money getting thrown around. There's political things, there are companies and VCs that need to get money back. So I see a huge influence on things that may or may not make the average user or consumer more secure, such as capitalism, where products are cheap.
Sure.
It's cheaper to manufacture. Companies need to make billions of dollars. VC needs to get repaid, so they have a product that gets pushed out that may not be ready, insecure code, all those things. So I think between complexity of systems and integration that we've light speeded through, maybe not appropriately and or while being ready, in combination with capitalism and the almighty dollar projecting its weight everywhere, I think that's what makes security very difficult.
Anyone else before I...
Go ahead, Jeff, because I've got some thoughts here too, but Jeff, go ahead.
Well,
and Mandy too, but Jeff, go ahead, and then we'll hit
ladies
Mandy.
first.
Okay, I'll go. Mandy. Mandy, you're up. Mandy, you're up.
So, I would say a few things. I think one part is that if you're looking just an individual jumping into security and trying to do it through all of the variables, I mean, you're really looking at all the endpoints, all of the connectors, all of the things that are going on, removing the bureaucracy, the commercialism, all of those things. You're looking as an individual at 10.4 million variables that you're in the middle of and are assigned this one very specific part that is very detailed. It can be very, very, very specific and detailed what you need to do. Trying to get the correct information is very complex. And then being able to take that, what you're actually doing, extract it out, and to consistently feel like it's having a place and a use in this grand schema of what's going on throughout the whole world, it can feel it's extremely difficult. I think that is part of it. And I feel like there's going back to last week's conversation about is security an emotion? If you go into that portion of it at all, then it can be extremely nerve-wracking, because you can take it on your shoulders that you are actually trying to create a very secure emotion among people who will never, ever know what you are doing or why you're trying to do it.
Interesting. Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with everything that everybody said so far, and yet I think there's more. And I this is one of the questions that people gave us ahead of time, so I had some time to think about it today. I might have dropped a story or two in our, for later in our news segment that kind of touch on this topic. In my opinion, I think one of the fundamental conundrums or paradoxes of our industry, and it sort of touches on or builds upon the whole idea of security being an emotion, but it's the difference between security being a noun, like a state that you achieve, and security being a verb, something you do. I think that's one layer of it. I think more fundamentally, though, perhaps, and hopefully you'll agree. It doesn't matter if you agree or not. It's just my opinion. But I think, at least in the private sector, I've been out in the private sector for 26, 27 years now. I think there's this never-ending conflict between people that think, I'm using systems, I'm using laptops, workstations, devices, mobiles, whatever. My company supplied it. They've had me set it up. I'm using all these applications. I'm assuming that everything I'm using is secure and everything that we do is secure. It's somebody else's problem. Somebody else has got it covered. And yet, most of us old timers will talk about how technology will never completely solve everything. There has to be people involved and processes, and you got to get, change corporate culture and get people to do certain things and not do certain things. And it all weaves together. And I think that's very much the camp I come from. But I also think it's fair for many of the organizations that I work with, especially in the PCI world. I think it's reasonable for, I went to the grocery store this afternoon. It's reasonable for a grocery store chain or just about any retail chain to use, check out, point of sale systems, cash registers, we used to call them. It's reasonable for companies like that whose job it is to sell food, produce, and worry about keeping stuff on the shelf, and have a reasonable expectation that all the technology that they're using is secure and somebody's provided it for them. And I think we can bring this up again in the news segment when we're talking about the the cybersecurity strategy. It's this continuous game of who's responsible. We need to get more of these people. You're responsible. Don't tell me I'm responsible. It's got to be somebody else. I see that in the PCI world all the time. Just the idea of pushing things out to a third party. Well, I've outsourced it. Therefore, I don't have to do the security because somebody else is doing it for me. I get that up to a point.
And that company outsourced it, and then that company...
Right, and then they told two friends.
Is the compiler that you use to compile the compilers?
Right.
Sorry.
But I think some of these things are irreconcilable, and especially, to Tyler's point, if you bring in the economics of it, if you think about let's say that this industry has existed for, let's say, 30 years, 25 years. Most of it has been driven by vendors selling tools and widgets and applications and solutions, and yet there'll be a story later on today. I added my own password story to go with the bad password rules.
Yep.
But spoiler alert for the future. Spec Ops came out with a report, and they found that hackers still find that the number one word that gets abused is password. Is their weak password.
Shocking.
None of us are surprised. But we've spent probably 98% of the budget of what's been spent in this industry over the last 30 years really trying to protect against the casual hacker, somebody that's just out there. It used to be a people, now it's bots and malware and things like that. But just things that are out that are sort of cast out, seeing if somebody's vulnerable. Nobody's particularly targeting you as an organization, you as a company, you as an individual. And when that happens, that's what we call nation state attack. And there's no defense for it, and there's no amount of money that's involved. Again, to me, it's an irreconcilable difference between the economics of what it takes to protect against somebody that really wants to go after you versus, well, let's just make sure we're just doing the best practices so that we don't get in too much trouble when we get breached, from our investors, our owners, our customers and clients and things like that. There are no good answers. That's why I drink hard liquor mostly, because I'm the type of InfoSec professional that's been around long enough to think that there is no good answers.
Sam, what about you? Do you think there's any good answers, and why is security so hard?
Oh, like I say, I think it's just a struggle against intelligent attackers. It's no different than any other such battle.
So this is also one of those questions that we had sort of a little bit earlier on, and I get to think about this one too, and tying back to some of that security as an emotion, and one of the things that we've talked about baking in security from the start. And my personal opinion, because it's my opinion, I could be right or wrong. It's my opinion. I think that's where we failed. We didn't bake security in from the start, because if you think about the inception of what we now refer to as the internet, was meant to be open and free, and we didn't have to worry about security because that's not what it was designed for. It was about information sharing, and information wanted to be free, Marty. Like, can you tell what my favorite hacker movie is, right?
Yep.
But we didn't build security into what became the internet. We didn't build security by design from the beginning because we didn't need to. And I think ever since that sort of inception, how many years ago, 30 plus years ago, that's why security is so hard, because we didn't include that from the beginning. And every day we're playing catch up.
Well, I want to disagree with you. I think that's an arbitrary decision. To have an open society like we have creates a certain vulnerability. If we were to have one to bake security in the beginning, we'd have like a closed system with the Great Firewall of China and a bunch of restrictions and less freedom. And then you just have a different vulnerability. Now you fall prey to a tyrant. I think if you look at security in a broader sense, every choice you make has an upside and a downside.
Yep, fair enough.
And a right side and a left side, and a middle.
No, yeah. Mandy has another comment.
Yes,
Mandy has another comment.
I have a question actually for Larry.
Even better.
So when you're thinking about the security not being built in from inception, do you feel like the pull for it to be done faster also has to do with the general greed for more or for new?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, you talk about that greed for more, and there's a story I tell in the Sans Wireless Classic 17, is that when I started in the industry, for the most part, access to the internet was a privilege. It was not a right. And then we got more access to the internet at our homes and our works, and then with the advent of the smartphone, we have internet in our pocket everywhere. Internet has now become a right and not a privilege. Like, faster, more content, give me access to everything from everywhere is now what people kind of expect. I mean, I can remember, and this is the story that I tell in class, is that I remember going to work, from the university, already employed at the university, into healthcare, and my first day on the job, I had to, if I wanted an email address, and I worked in the IT department, if I wanted an email address, I had to fill out a paper form and put it in, I didn't have to put it in the inner office envelope, and bring it to my boss so my boss could approve my creation of my email address. And then he would walk it over to the cubicle a couple down from his office, and they would create my email address. And then if I wanted access to the internet, I had to email my request to the IT department. Like, I had to get my email first, and then I had to get access to the internet. I worked in the IT department. It was my job to support and build the network, and I didn't have access to the internet until I specifically requested it. Like, yeah, make it faster, make it everywhere, I think. And with that greed for having that everywhere and make it go faster, just develop things and get it done. Absolutely. I think that's something that's come back to bite us a lot.
Well, I think that'll come up again more in our news segment with a couple of the articles, at least that I put up. We actually had a question come in on Twitch, if I may. This is from Funky Anomaly. Thoughts on moving from engineering 7 years in to architect? I'm at a career point to either go into consulting or step into a pure architectural role. Of course, there's overlap, but I understand that architecture would be more distant from hands-on tech. Anyone?
That's a great question. I mean, I think this.
And just remember, his whole career and livelihood, and his whole feelings about himself is dependent on our answers. No pressure.
No pressure. So, and to that, my answer will will be very much, you need to go do some navel gazing and some soul searching about what do you really want to do. Do you want to do some more of that higher level, less hands-on, or do you want to continue to be down in the trenches? Arguably, and again, my opinion, think about 15 years from now, where do you want to, that question in the interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 15 years? Do you want to be, the person that is still, potentially doing some high-level product development and that type of stuff, still have hands on keyboard, driving the organization from that level of technical expertise, or an organization? Or is, some more thought leadership type of, higher level management something that is, thinking you enjoy managing people and, dealing with process and that type of stuff a little bit more? Arguably, I see those sort of two diverging in that I see a little bit more of the architect role going down into that higher level thought, decision process making and those types of things down the more management route. And that's just the way I see it. And, maybe that's because of the way that some of my role has gone. Anybody else have thoughts?
I would say that a lot of that, there can be three separate paths. And honestly, there's no wrong answer. One of the things I've learned is you take a job, you adapt, overcome, learn some things. Sometimes it was a good role. Sometimes it's a good role that you learn things that you shouldn't do. And all those things are better for you depending on how you take them and move forward. But from an engineer to an architecture, really you're looking at this in the same manner that many people have to adapt from technical to management. Do you want to manage people? Do you want to remain technical? You can do both. That takes a little bit more effort, but you're still having to adapt to different skills with management and learning people, psychology, buy-in, and servant leadership. But on top of that, there's a difference between management and leadership. When you start to jump from, say, director role to like a CISO or an executive role, now you're moving very large levers. You're being very strategic. And I think you're kind of in between from the engineering to the architecture. You're making that more of a management. You can remain very technical because you have to, as an architect, to understand how to architect things. But from the standpoint of the architect, you're taking a jump over to the executive side where you have to be very strategic and think big picture and understand the business and be able to communicate effectively and evaluate things that are probably outside of your realm from a technical standpoint. Like, what is the business and how are they making money? What are the concerns from a business opportunity cost or business loss opportunity cost? What is the role in recovering revenue and ROI for particular technologies that we're looking at adapting? Cloud versus multi-cloud. All these things become very strategic, and that requires you to understand a much higher level strategic business and have an aptitude for that rather than just moving from technical to management. So I think thinking about that from that role really depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to get more strategic, if you want to get big picture, you want to get cloud, you want to get more integrated into the business and have bigger effects, you can affect a lot more things from an architectural role. If you like to remain very technical and implement things that you don't have control over, those are things where you remain in engineering. You just want to figure out hard problems, do challenges, figure out things that are put on you and required from the thought of within inside of a box that's given to you. So those are kind of two different aptitudes that require you to look at yourself and what you're at.
Two different kind of puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my thought is, and I've been a consultant for 28 years, so I kind of like consulting just because there's things about consulting that give me, job satisfaction. But that's me. I would say, I'm going to quote my wife who quotes, I think the woman's name Marie Kondo. She's always saying, she's famous for giving a quote, what gives you joy? Or, does this give you joy?
Does it spark joy?
What do you like doing? Do you like doing architectural work? Do you like doing engineering work? Do you like doing consulting? Figure out what it is you like to do. Do that. All the other things will work itself out, and I think you'll be happier if you're able to and you can afford to do what you like doing. So I don't know what the answer is. Do what you like doing. That's my life advice.
If I can throw something in there,
absolutely.
I would say first to the listener, I'm sorry, I forgot the name exactly, but congratulations on getting to this point of having another opportunity come
That's
up.
awesome.
Funky anomaly.
Funky anomaly. I was going to say funky Andromeda, but okay, funky anomaly. Congrats on having this opportunity and that you have the chance to step back and really do, like each of the co-hosts have brought up, kind of some soul searching. And if I could make a suggestion, I would say to do 3 things maybe, is look at because it sounds like you've been in the engineering role, you know where you are, you haven't been in the architecture role. But if you step back and look and find 4 things between both roles that would give you energy day to day to accomplish, and think about those, and then step back a little bit further and look at a very, very broad definition of what is engineering and what is the architecture. Look at just like a very simple baseline definition of those each. Then look at how you just worded that question that Jeff put up, and remove that you've had experience in engineering and figure out how you worded that question. Does it align more to architecture or does it align more to engineering? And allow yourself to look at that from a very simple baseline and kind of a self-esteem building way of that you have this opportunity and this power, and you might actually be an architect inside, and your wording might have already shown you that.
Mandy, that's really powerful. I really like that. I really like that. I was gonna call on Sam, but he just up and left us here. So, but that's okay.
I think he went to submit a resume somewhere.
In any case, all right. Let's do something fun. Which host is the worst influence? Anyone?
Ooh.
Anyone? I'll go first. I'll set the stage for this one. I think this determines how you define worst exactly and how you define influence. I mean, it's all on how you define is. It's all about your definition of is, right? Thinking about some of those perspectives, Tyler's an absolute horrible influence. Because when I hear about all the things that Tyler's working on, I'm like, damn it, I sleep too much. Like, he's a horrible influence for me to want to do more, and knowing that I have my own limits. So Tyler's a horrible influence in that way, and that he motivates me to want to do more, and it's not always successful. Is that really a horrible influence? It depends on your perspective, right? I'd say that I'm also a pretty bad influence. I think back to a story about when back in the days when we were podcasting from Paul's pool table in his basement. And that, before the show one day, he's like, dude, check out this thing that I just got. And I think it was his like first network attached storage. And that was a new concept for being able to buy like a Drobo type of thing. And he's like, check this out. I just took it out of the box. Hey, I'll be right back. He had to go upstairs and feed the dogs or something. And he said, check it out. So immediately the Leatherman came off of my belt. I removed all the screws and I opened it up and I had it laid out in about 8 different pieces on the pool table, all spread out. And he comes downstairs. He's like, what did you do? I said, you told me to check it out. So I took it apart. I checked out what's inside. I'm like, dude, that's running this chipset. And like, it's not Broadcom. It's all this other stuff. Like, this is cool. Like, that's probably a bad influence. Maybe I convince folks to do something like that, maybe you should turn it on and make sure it works before you void your warranty. So
the question wasn't bad influence, it was worst influence.
Worst influence.
What is the worst influence?
I say Tyler. I think should we all vote?
but why is Tyler the worst influence?
There's probably a lot of reasons. I don't know. I seeing all you guys and being very focused and strategic on your time, I would go the opposite way. Like, I am definitely an working improvement of always self-betterment, but that is usually looking at other people that are doing things better. You're spending more time with your family, you're less committed, you're focused on individual projects. All of those things are good things when looked at in the right context. So, yeah, maybe I am a bad influence for being too spread out, and a good influence on things you should probably not do, or evaluate your priorities, because you do need to have priorities, and that comes with time and energy and a lot of self motivation to change some of those things. So I would say all of you guys are horrible influences in making you be a better person and have to reevaluate on a daily basis, which is great. I would say from a mischievous side, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with Larry 100%, because he'll just leave a little bit out there, like, hey, wonder what would happen if we just looked at this. Maybe if we just took those screws out. Well, what do you think's under there? And he doesn't even have to do it. He'll just inspire you to go through the. That's usually enough for most of us to go do.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, I was going to say, by default, if it includes all the hosts, not just those that are present, then wouldn't it kind of have to be Paul?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I mean, that seems basic. And then by proxy, it would be Larry.
Yeah, I mean, Paul and I started this on day one together. And like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and, thinking about that too, I think about the history and how far we've come with this podcast over the last 17 years. Good Lord, 18 years. And I think also about how we have changed and grown as people. And looking back from my own perspective, I'd nominate myself as, being a bad influence. I look back at, how I have acted in some of the cases, and that, like, I don't know how many years, I was always the guy that was ready with the fart or the dick joke. Like, that's a horrible influence. Like, nowadays, yeah, I've grown up. Like, I'm not that kind of influence anymore.
And yet those jokes still
crop up. They still pop up from time to time, just like a good dick joke pops up from time to time. You see, just what I did there. Mm. They're maybe a little bit more subtle, and they are maybe better timed, and they're not everything that comes out of my mouth. Like, I have so much more to say and those types of things. So thinking back, I was probably a bad influence in that respect, and I will fully admit it. But we grew as people, and it's not for me. It's not necessarily of an environment of society has changed, and we need to be more sensitive about that. I think it's just like I grew up.
My initial thought responding to this question is, let's wait a week and ask the question when we find out that Funky Anomaly just quit his job.
And whose advice he followed. Or they followed, I should say.
Or maybe wait a year and we'll touch back base with him. Mm-hmm. He also said he has a random thought, and he thinks we should come up with a funny jingle or something for every time I bring up PCI.
Drink. We did.
We did. We say drink. It doesn't. We could have drink and set it to music or something.
No, we'll come up with a jingle.
You should have
That's a good one. That's a good one.
need a sound effect, a button.
All right, we're running low on time. I want to get a quick
There's
answer.
that big long question.
Yeah, I want to do the big long question, but I really want to get to yours too, Jeff. So you know,
And it's our show tonight.
let's put it this way:
we
it's
can run a little bit long. If
we can, and we still have news to cover. But you know, sorry,
it's our show.
You know, it's our show. I mean, Sam's going to yell at me, but that's okay. I can take it. I'm a big boy now. So the really long question. I'm curious as to the group's thoughts on how a CISO can properly work with a CEO without diluting the CEO's span of control. I think it's important that the CISO has access to the CEO, but I disagree with the idea that a CEO must be one of the CEO's direct reports.
I think that's supposed to be the CISO and not the CEO.
Yeah. I know this might sound like counterproductive thinking, but look at it from the perspective of the CEO. They need a manageable span of control to work effectively. If the CEO has a CRO, CFO, COO, CIO, CTO, CMO, CISO, and EA reporting to them, they would be spread so thin that every part of the organization would suffer, including security.
When I read that question, I thought back to when I first came out into the private sector back in the mid to late 90s, and we were trying to sell the concept of doing what we called at the time internet or network security to organizations and trying to convince them they needed to build a program and come up with policies and procedures and not just run out and buy the latest widget. And I've been having that conversation since then, unfortunately. But we used to have these philosophical debates back then of where security as an organization should be placed in an organization, because initially, and I'm not sure that this isn't still the case, it was an arm of IT. And we always thought, well, that's kind of silly because, you know, it should really be more of an independent organization. And there's been variations of that in a lot of organizations. That's why we have governance these days. You know, we have the people that I work with in PCI, they're responsible for pulling all the evidence together from the security groups, from the admins, the IT people, the dev folks, and all that kind of stuff. But you know, they're large. You know, they call themselves internal audit or compliance or GRC, but their job is largely they're collecting all the information. We used to argue whether it should fall under or should be a direct report to the CFO or the CIO. And CTO kind of was without question, no, it shouldn't be there if that's where IT fell.
Yep. Definitely not the CTO. In fact, we've discussed this at length several times on Business Security Weekly. And usually most people that have done this for a while and have seen a lot of the mistakes, it typically should fall under like the CRO, the Chief Risk Officer. Because at the end of the day, security is
evaluated. That didn't exist back then 25 years ago.
Didn't.
So it's a new one on me.
The CFO is probably the next best side of that, because what is the CFO's job? To evaluate what risks so that the business can make money, and that usually falls within inside that. CEO should never, in fact, CIO and CEO are probably the very, very last two that should ever come into that equation. The CTO, there's conflicts of interest, and you've got competing interests as far as that goes. The CIO, their entire role is not security focused and enabling the business, which is what security should be doing, while demonstrating risk, can't fall under that without some very big conflicts of interest. So really, there's not very many good answers. CFO and CRO are probably the two biggest ones. And if you check out that Business Security Weekly episode, I don't know which one it was a few weeks back, we run through lots of scenarios where this doesn't play out well, and ways you can make it work if you are in that position. So
I'm going to dissect this question a little bit, because I think there's some underlying questions built into this question. One of which is frankly whether the role of CISO is a board level position, and I think most of the time I've seen it's not. Right. And so I think that's one of the questions is CISO a board level position? I think another question, you know, if the answer to the first question is no, then it's where does the CISO properly roll up in terms of reporting? I think that's another question that's worth a short consideration. CISO didn't exist when I was first thinking about this 25 years ago, 27 years ago in the private sector. So it wasn't a thing. Neither was chief risk officer. But the idea of, the chief financial officer, the idea of risk, quantifying risk, qualifying risk, making risk-based decisions, up until the internet, that was all financially based. And I would argue it's still a financially based decision. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the CFO to be where it rolls up if it's not a board level position. But there's a lot of movement these days. Someday I'm supposed to take some sort of training course that qualifies me to be a board level seat that has cybersecurity. Not that I'm a board level type of person, suit person, which is why I haven't taken the course yet. But there's certainly a train of thought that security needs to have a seat at the table on the board. But the what I've seen most recently is train the people that are already sitting there, give them a little bit of an education on cybersecurity and not at the technical nuts and bolts level, but at the conceptual, philosophical, organizational, strategery level. Mm-hmm. And then it's less of an issue of whether if there's a role of CISO that they're sitting at the table or not, or whether they're reporting under or if they're attached out to the side. That's my thoughts. Anybody else?
I think you guys nailed a lot of the stuff that I said. I know, that Tyler sort of hit on that. It doesn't fall into the CTO. I've seen that fail a lot. I've been in that role and have it fail. And specifically thinking about the way I saw it was that the chief technology officer was responsible for making sure that the systems were up for our 3 nines or our 5 nines. While the chief security officer was like, no, you got to take that shit down and patch it. You're going to lose your uptime because you got to take this stuff down and patch it because you have, critical exploited in the wild right now vulnerabilities, internet facing thing, but you can't take it down because you're, because of your uptime so that doesn't work. Definitely some competing stuff there, and was in that position. So
quick around the horn with that last question.
I think so. So Jeff, I'll let you lead that one off.
So the question is, what have you been up to lately? What's going on? My day job is PCI. I'm a QSA. I've got several clients that I'm working with right now. Some that I've been working with for years, and it's just a routine. I hate to call it an audit, but after you're doing it a while, it becomes more like an audit. I've had a client that I've been working with for over a year, preparing them for their first PCI assessment. So they're pins and needles waiting to see if they can make it to the finish line. I'm back out doing some public speaking again. I'll be at CypherCon the end of the month, which is in Milwaukee. Last time I was there was 2019, strangely enough, prior to COVID. The best part about that is I'm bringing Hannah with me. Woohoo! So I'm finally getting her to a hacker conference. I don't know if she'll like it, but I've been wanting her to experience it at least once, and we get to do that in Milwaukee. I'll be going into RSA. We mentioned that earlier. When I get back from RSA, B-Sides Charm will be going on the last weekend of April. I'm helping out with the organizing of that. And right after that, I'll be going down to New Orleans for B-Sides Nolans, B-Sides NOLA, and I'm going to see some guy that's named Jack Daniel while I'm down there. And I come back from there, and then I go to Canada to do more QSA stuff. So I'm going to be on the road a lot in the next month or two. Nice. That's me.
Jeff, I'm going to go next. As some of you who have listened to the show know, that my job has changed. Mm-hmm. Pen testing for so long, and now I'm doing something completely different from the day for the normal day job, and writing a lot, doing a lot of more marketing, and I make the joke if I had known 20 years ago someone was going to refer to me as a thought leader, I'd have shot myself in the face. But guess what? I'm a thought leader now. So, doing the thought leadership stuff. And arguably, I think one of the biggest challenges that I have right now is at Finite State, I have an absolute mountain of data. And I have a mountain of data. And holy crap, that mountain of data is valuable, and the amount of things that we can extract from that, and the amount of things that we can extract in the future that we need to think about to analyze for, in my opinion, is mind-blowing and staggering, and it's an amazing puzzle to try to solve.
So what I'm hearing is there's a lot to think about thinking about.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
not wrong. You're not wrong. But I actually get to do some of the technical implementation of some of that type of stuff. So that's
Buyer's
pretty
remorse?
cool. Definitely not.
Missing the pen testing world?
I do mess the pen test world a little bit, but that said, some of the personal projects don't fall far from the pen test stuff. I was thinking about this question because I thought it was interesting. For me, I still have my foot in the wireless game and of all varieties, and there's just so many new tools that are fascinating from the wireless realm between software-defined radio and Wi-Fi 6E and the the Flipper Zero, the Flipper One, the Flipper, and the Evil Crow, and a bunch of other software-defined radio add-ons, and there's still so much fun stuff to happen there, and that's how I'm spending a lot of my evenings is how do I go and do some attacks against WPA3 with simultaneous authentication of equals, and that's still some of the life that I'm living.
Hey, real quick, Larry, because you touched on different technologies. We missed a question. We should get it in. Just to be fair, Gray Fox had asked a long time ago, how do any of us find time to keep up with the new tools, tech, and security flavors of the day?
Yep. I mean,
that's your job now. So why don't you answer that question?
It's my job. Read, listen to podcasts. I think we've said this for a long time that the learning doesn't stop when you get up from your desk at the end of the day. My evenings are often sitting on the sofa, watching TV with my wife and trying to decompress while reading WPA3 standards. So it's like being a professional student all the time to continue to play with this stuff because, in my opinion, for me, it's a passion. Okay. One of the other questions we have is how do you avoid burnout? One of my things and what's happening with Larry is that I try to do things that are not technology related, but still allow me to solve a puzzle because I really enjoy solving that puzzle. But sit me down with a jigsaw puzzle and nope, don't want to deal with that. I like other kinds of puzzles. For me, I have spent a lot of time over the last 6 months completely rearranging and building my workshop infrastructure, meaning woodworking, metalworking, epoxy, all sorts of stuff, and doing something non-technical, non-computer related to the point that I am taking delivery of a machinist lathe and a desktop milling machine tomorrow.
Cool.
And yes, doing something with my hands that isn't building bits, ones and zeros. So.
MST. Mandy, what are you up to these days?
Ooh, let's see. A lot of different things. One thing I was really excited about is recently partnering with the Diana Initiative and working on creating a neurodiversity initiative within Diana Initiative, which brought me to applying for the very first grant ever through the Gula Tech grant that was for encouraging neurodiversity within InfoSec. And that has been fascinating to get to the point of going oh yeah, all these things and stuff that I have done or that I see other people within the hacker world doing in order to be able to successfully thrive while being neurodivergent and getting to bring things that will support specifically. That has been very exciting. And it's also kind of like a puzzle, trying to figure out how to do what's the most effective, what's the most useful, and what things do I see missing within initiatives and information that are provided to autistic and ADHD and OCD and other neurodivergent brains.
That's so CDO, by the way, Mandy.
CDO.
Yeah,
you gotta have them in the right order.
It's got to be in alphabetical order.
So then prepping, stuff on Sky Talks, gearing up for DEF CON some, looking at speaking. I've done some things recently helping, particularly in one case where a woman's husband of 24 years has gone completely off the deep end, and he did work in IT and has turned his family's lives into misery. So doing things like sweeping, actually Will Karuna from Car Hacking Village, and I can't remember the name of the company he works for now, but doing things like sweeping her vehicles and for trackers and resetting infotainment systems to redoing all of her devices and helping teach them very quickly how to become untraceable, how to harden their own personal security, being there while she's crying, while all these things are going on, while police are involved. That's been a huge helpful, at the moment in time. And I like getting to do this, but it's very, very taxing. It can be. I've been working on, I just moved recently, last few weeks, in part thanks to people here and from the hacker community that helped with that. So still trying to get settled, still trying to act like, oh yeah, this is a put together house. Sure. I have been dating, so that's a whole project. And then I work on adaptive Olympic weightlifting. So that's been a personal thing, and getting now the place I have a garage. So getting all power tools and tools set up and getting like a workspace again to actually have an area to do more hands-on stuff. I'm thinking about taking up leatherworking. I think that's what I might do next.
Ooh.
So
we can share notes.
Yeah. I don't really have any background in it, but that learning, I've been, applying for jobs, writing resumes, networking, talking, meeting with a ghostwriter about some books and graphic novels and want to write. A lot of my stuff right now. I'm working with my service animal, looking at teaching him to speak with words using the buttons.
Oh, that's awesome. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
Sam, how about you? What are you up to?
Oh, just the same old thing. I'm always doing a lot of training at the college and a lot of conferences and training for companies. The only thing I'm doing new is porting my exploit development over to ARM now that I got the M1. Oh. And that's pretty interesting. The ARM exploits are very primitive. When I tried to do it 2 years ago, Metasploit had nothing. Now it has just a few things. So, that's educational.
Yeah, that's a tough nut to crack, but I can see it's going to be a lot more valuable coming up here in the future that so much has moved to ARM. And we think about IoT as, between ARM and MIPS, it's in the right spot.
Yeah, I've had some arguments with people about MIPS. Theoretically, MIPS stopped being supported about a year ago and should be fading, but it's still everywhere.
Yes.
Not sure how important it is, but that would be the next thing, would be to do MIPS in addition to ARM.
Yep, we did some stuff the other day. I mean, it's public. It's part of the S4 challenge, the SBOM challenge. Is Motorola 68K. Like, didn't that stuff die a decade ago? Yeah. No, it's still there. It's still around. Still around. So.
And last but not least, Mr. Robinson.
Oh, geez.
Have you broken anything lately?
I have not broken anything in a while. Like,
not even on your body?
No, so well. Okay, so not on my body. I will say I've broken a lot of stuff.
So speaking of, I had to have an X-ray yesterday, thinking I had a hairline fracture.
Oh no!
But I didn't.
Yeah, luckily there's not been any surgeries in the last couple months, so I'm in good shape. Man, I'm all over the place. I'd say most of my time spent trying to get into actors networks or taking down ransomware gangs or trying to steal keys and decrypt stuff for working groups or working with government or different working group agencies. I'll say there's some free time helping battered women. I got some Ukraine initiatives that I've been trying to help out on. Obviously the day job, the podcast, still coaching wrestling and soccer and still playing soccer. So, there's a lot of after hour stuff. And then a couple new ventures into some data brokerage stuff that I've been working on for quite a while. So there's a lot going on.
Cool.
Yeah, you're never not busy. I've never known you to be bored or relax.
Yeah, someday we'll figure out the relax part.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think we got through all the questions.
Good point. I mean, there may be one or two, but no big deal. No big deal. Because one of them was a question I submitted, so it's not a.
Oh, that doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Exactly. Figuring we weren't going to have enough
That
questions.
was the dead air, Phil question.
Exactly. So with that, I think we should wrap it up. I think that was we had a good time. Glad everybody could participate, and we should probably just do an AMA for Paul and us get to ask Paul all the hard questions at some point here.
We'll see if we can work that out.
Yeah. He won't like that very much, but hey, maybe he's got to suck it up.
Maybe.
So with that, let's wrap this one up, and we'll come back and see you for the news.